find ones that would be particularly good to add to that playlist.
Yeah, you let me know. I'll make that happen. And
Okay.
Hang on, I'm not saying anything. I don't want to jinx it. I don't believe in jinxes, but all right, we are live, and
Oh, that's great.
I'm now going to resume recording, and we're good to go.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for setting that up.
Oh, no worries. We're looking at ways to automate that process. So one of the challenges is we sometimes a meeting doesn't happen, like it gets canceled and one person shows up and suddenly the recording starts. So Ryan and I are, well, Rye's done all the hard work. We're looking at how to automate this so that when you start the meeting, it just happens. Here we go. And we've got awesome. Oh, the BC.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, you can see my screen. It looks good.
I can see your screen, and I see Telegram Sam has joined us.
Wonderful. Welcome, Sam.
And set Char to co-host.
Thank you. Hi, Tim.
Hey, Tim. Make co-host.
Good morning.
All right, Char, you're the co-host.
Thank you.
If there's ever anybody else you want added as co-host, just let me know.
Okay, great. Good to know.
I generally have a policy that we turn on co-host or have someone else as host because internet goes down. We don't want the end because one person is, the point of failure. So
yeah, that happened once before.
Yes, again, super fun. Thanks, Zoom. You're the best.
Very fun.
Although the alternatives are not even. Probably shouldn't say that on a recording, but yeah.
Cool. Let's see. Where our speaker today is Clasio of BCGov. So let's wait until we see him on the call.
Go ahead.
Hi, Maria. Thanks for joining the call.
Hi.
We'll get started in just a few minutes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hi, Clasio.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. All right, let's see. We can probably go ahead and get started. We're already recording, so that's great. Let's see. Welcome, everyone, to the Hyperledger Identity Special Interest Group call for May 4th, 2023. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Shar Howland. I'm a co-chair of this group with Bipin Bharathan and Tim Spring. So today we will talk about a bit about the change of this group from a working group to a special interest group and our merge with the identity working group, which we're really excited about. We'll also go over working group status updates, and we will hear a presentation from Clasio Varjau of BCGov on Aries Bifold and the BC wallet. So thanks so much for joining us today, Clasio. This is a Linux Foundation call, and so we are following the Linux Foundation antitrust policy as well as the Hyperledger Code of Conduct, both of which are linked and written here. This call is, of course, being recorded and streamed on YouTube. I will post the recording on this meeting page later today, and I'll send out this page in the chat. Let's see, if you want to write your name on the attendees list, that would be wonderful. Always fun to be able to see who's attending our calls. And I think we have some new faces on the call today. Would anybody like to take a moment to introduce themselves? Say whatever you want to say, a brief introduction of yourself, what has brought you to the space, what you're working on. So would love to hear from any new people on the call.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Chang Liu, and currently I'm a research manager at Blockchain UBC, a blockchain research cluster at the University of British Columbia. And Before I became the research manager, I was a postdoc research fellow at the research cluster. And I have a PhD in business, focused on strategic management and organization. My research area is blockchain adoption in healthcare. I'm very excited to meet everyone and learn from everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining the call, Cheng.
Thank you.
Great to have you on. Sean, it looks like your hand is up.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Sean Bohan. I am a community architect at Hyperledger. I've been in and out of the Hyperledger community for the last 6 years. This week was the 6th anniversary of Indy being accepted into Hyperledger as a project, which was pretty weird to see pop up. I am here. I'll be on a lot of these calls going forward. Now that we have an identity SIG, we are live streaming this to YouTube. So if folks want to watch it live, or if they want to watch it later on, we have an identity SIG playlist on the Hyperledger YouTube. And if anybody needs to reach me, you can find me on Discord. Just pop a note in Community Architects. I monitor that all day long, but also, whether you're in the Indy or the Aries, the non-creds community, welcome. And thank you for Char for leading on this.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Sean. Would anybody else like to introduce themselves? All right, let's see. A few announcements worth mentioning. There's a non-creds workshop on May 31st. Here's the link to register. That'll be great. So definitely encourage everybody to attend. Let's see. Another announcement, of course, is our merge with the identity working group and becoming a special interest group. I was thinking it'd be nice to talk a bit about what that means, what that is going to look like, maybe reintroduce our co-chairs, Vipin, Tim, and myself. But before we jump into that, are there any other announcements that anybody has or any introductions that anybody would like to make? All right, wonderful. So Tim Spring and I have been co-chairing the Hyperledger Identity Implementers Working Group call for a while, and Bipin Barathan of DLT NYC has been leading the Identity Working Group. So we're really excited to join forces and become a special interest group instead of a working group. This fits better what we do here, where it's a roundup of community news and working group progress updates, presentations, and demos, rather than a technical project that we're developing together. So we're excited to consolidate the existing communities and resources of these working groups. It's really wanting it to be an entry point for newcomers, a place to ask questions, community news. There are so many calls, too many to attend all of them. So this gives the brief updates on what is going on. So those are some of the main goals. Collaborating across Hyperledger identity projects and collaborating with other special interest groups that focus on identity as well. Leading outreach to other Linux Foundation identity communities. Of course, we track updates in the TYP and the diff, which is great. Also bringing in speakers to talk about a deep dive of interesting topics or demos. And yeah, creating a forum for members to engage in the identity conversation within Hyperledger and yeah, have a place to host that conversation. So yeah, just wanting to open it up. If anyone has questions about this change, we're also always appreciating feedback. If anybody has suggestions on how we run these calls, format or content changes, would love to hear that as well. We could also probably do a brief introduction of reintroduction of our co-chairs, Tim and Vipin, if you're willing. I can start. My name is Shar, and I work at Indicio as a software engineer. I mainly worked on projects related to Hyperledger, Aries, and Indy. I'm an active developer on the Aries Cloud Agent Python ecosystem, developing plugins and other purpose-built agents and protocols. And then I'm involved as a co-chair of the Hyperledger Indy contributors working group, and of course this one as well. But Tim and Vipin, would you like to jump in with a brief introduction of yourself?
Tim?
Sure. Go ahead, Vipin.
No, I said, I'm waiting for you.
All right. Hi, my name is Tim Spring. I'm a marketing director at Indicio, and I try to help line up speakers and do any help in promoting the groups. So that's kind of what I try to bring to the table.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vipin Bharathan. I've been running the identity working group for quite a while. In fact, the identity working group started almost at the same time as the Hyperledger itself. In the first meeting, first hackathon get together, we started the group. It was first chaired by one of the legends in the space. Then it got taken over. It got orphaned, and I jumped in to take it over, and we launched almost all the projects that are now flourishing. We were the mothership. Indy was launched inside the identity working group, and also Aries and many others. And I'm so glad to see that it's all thriving. And we also did, differentiate. I mean, the identity implementers working group started as a sort of a tactical group for reporting on the work in progress of all the work that is going on in the identity space. In terms of the differentiation between the two, it used to be that the identity working group proper was where a strategic sort of vision was presented, and specific project details were presented in the implementers working group. Identity working group as not as active as the implementers working group, because obviously the projects are very alive. So I'm glad to see this new life being injected into the system, and we will take it forward from there. And hopefully we'll have some presentations that are focused more on a strategic vision, especially integration with other projects, because identity by itself is not very exciting, at least for me, because it is the foundational aspect of identity for all different projects, meaning healthcare, financial markets, anything you touch has an identity component. And that's where the identity working group used to focus. Now identity SIG will have these twin paths, but obviously not very divergent. Thanks for restarting, rebooting this whole concept. To Sean, who's now our new point of contact. And that will be all. I'm eager to hear what the presenter has to stay.
Likewise. Yeah, thanks, Vipin, for that bit of history. That's great to hear, and really excited to join forces. All right, before we jump into the agenda, does anybody have any questions about the change in the working group? Any announcements or introductions? All right. So let's jump into the agenda for the working groups that we track. Did I see a hand up? Oh, okay. Well, feel free to jump in anytime. Let's see. So usually we spend the first part of the call going over working group updates, and then we turn it over to the speaker to give their presentation or demo. So we will start with these working groups that we track. I'll send the wiki out in the chat again for those who have joined more recently. So in the indie contributors call, we are making good progress on the sovereign node pipeline there's been some branch switching happening. Main got switched to Ubuntu 16.04, and the Ubuntu 20.04 branch became main. This is a part of the upgrade to Ubuntu 20.04, and so there's testing happening. There's some branch comparison work yet to finish up, but working towards an official release, which is really exciting. Also scoping out the top priority tasks on the indie roadmap that we have developed recently, and especially repo cleanup is what we're starting with. So going through open PRs and figuring out what we want to do with them, retarget them to the right branch again, or close them. So that is all going well. In the Aries working group, Sam, would you want to jump in with any updates there?
Yes, sorry, I just took a bite of food.
No worries.
The discussion we had is pretty relevant. We're talking about transitioning the legacy use of unqualified DIDs and some indie projects over to DID peer method 2. Also a DID peer method 3, which is an efficient synonym for DID peer 2, and then that will be leveraged into that conversion in anticipation of our continued work on defining AIP3. That's our quick summary.
Very cool. Thank you. All right. Aries Bifold. Anybody attend that group who'd like to report? Clasio, you're probably pretty involved in that one.
Yes, I do. I think the previous one, there hasn't been any major changes. Again, we're working on the component, creating more components, breaking down to more components that are reusable for different use cases and different applications.
Wonderful. Thanks for that update. Let's see. In the Aries Collision Python user group, we had an update from the Indicio team on our BCGov code with us to upgrade Akapi to use the Hyperledger implementation of a non-cred. So we've been working on revocation support, reassessing the existing revocation components to figure out what we can reuse there. So yeah, mainly working on revocation there. Some Tails file issues we've had to solve, but next we're looking at working on documentation, creating a non-creds method plugin author guide so that there's enough documentation that people can create their own plugins, and then unit and integration tests as well. Another thing discussed on that call was talking about converting an Akapi deployment to use Aries Ascar. So Wade Barnes talked about some lessons learned there, which was interesting to hear. All right, in the Aries Framework JavaScript call, did anybody attend this one who'd like to report on their progress?
Today's meetings got canceled, so I don't think there has been any major change upgrades there. I know, as you had already mentioned in this, sorry, Animo is working on some of those in the VDR replacements as well, and introductions to removing in the SDK, replacing with in the VDR, shared RS and ASCAR and all that. That's one of the major changes going on at that space.
Great, thanks for that update. All right, in Hyperledger Ursa, bit of a big announcement here. Ursa is being end of lifed. There has not been so much recent development or time from maintainers. There's some discussion on this PR linked here if you're interested in looking at that, but it looks like the pieces that other Hyperledger projects depend on with Ursa will be moved into those projects, which are Anancreds, Indy, Aries, and Iroha. So the CL signatures part will go into Anancreds, BLS signatures going into Indy, and BBS signatures going into Aries. So yeah, that's a big change that's happening. Does anybody want to provide any more information there or any questions on that?
Char, I can pitch in just a little bit. So the Hyperledger staff had reached out to Ursa stakeholders over the last couple of weeks to talk about the status of Ursa, the progress of Ursa, and where Ursa is going. The Ursa maintainers, in a discussion that we had with them, volunteered that there was a method by which they could help move the dependency components out of Ursa itself, so that we're not abandoning the projects that leverage those components, but also end of life Ursa. As a follow-on, we just had a conversation in the Hyperledger Technical Oversight Committee about how we go about this in the future, and making sure that we are not, even though the maintainers were the ones who volunteered the PR, we're not rushing these decisions and the possibility of going to a step before end of life, so that there is some quiet period where folks can coordinate and make the decisions that they need to. So yeah, so we're gonna make some changes, not from a governance perspective, but from an approach perspective, where we have projects in the future that need to go to end of life. But at the same time, we also don't want to have projects that are hanging out there and abandoned, and other people are picking them up and using them as dependencies who we may not know about. It's open source. We don't know everyone who's using our code within the Hyperledger projects. So we want to make sure that the projects that we have are being, maintained and updated. And so this is a pretty natural process. We end of life 4 or 5 projects last year. This is just, the grooming of the projects that we have and making sure that we have active communities that are not just being built, but ongoing. And so, yeah, there's a lot of work going on right now in Iroha, Indy, and Aries land to accommodate for this change and Ursa going EOL.
Yeah, thanks for that context, Sean.
Can I say something here?
Sure.
Absolutely.
When a project reaches a certain maturity, the contributions tail off. But if the project is being used actively and it is actually a library, I don't understand this whole concept of end of life for that project and then pairing it apart and putting it into different other projects. There are many projects out in open source that reach a certain level of maturity, and after which they are being used all over the place. Sometimes with hidden bugs, as you know, like Log4j, which has been around for 14 years or so. But the point is, this whole end of life concept, it needs re-examining from that angle. Anyway, that's a different conversation somewhere else. But as far as Ursa goes, is the library itself being archived in any state to be used, or does it need further development?
Could you repeat the question, Vipin?
The current library, which is
Yep.
Ursa, can it be used, as a library for the foreseeable future, or do we have to then now follow these different pieces that are in different projects to get future upgrades?
If someone wants to use the current library, they can. We're putting a big disclaimer that it is an end of life to archive project with no active maintainers and not being actively maintained. Use at your own risk. What we're working on as a community right now is making sure that the projects that we know that have a dependency on Ursa, specifically Indie, Aries, and Iroha was using Ursa. They are able to transition the components within Ursa that they're using, so they're not left high and dry. We still have folks show up in like the Hyperledger Discord asking us about projects, Avalon, which were deprecated a year ago, or someone was using something in a project, they stopped that project, now they come back and they're like, hey, how come no one's updated this? Well, we end of lifed it over a year ago. Like that still happens, and we want to be really considerate in how we approach this. And then +1 to Sam for not rushing. You're absolutely correct. We are looking from a process perspective how to make sure we're not rushing in the future. But also we don't want to have ticking time bombs out there that we don't know about, or a situation where the maintainers have moved on and we get a critical vulnerability report and there's a scramble to find someone to work on it. So this is we're going to find a balance between keeping things available and maturity, and at the same time being good stewards and being good stewards of the projects that we have.
Yeah,
We'll
absolutely.
take it up on a separate thread, Sean.
Sure.
Sounds good. All right, Hyperledger and non-creds. Anybody attend this most recent working group meeting that would like to report? Looks like they are preparing for the non-creds workshop that I mentioned at the end of the month, and getting updates from the non-creds V2 working group as well, talking about a non-creds in W3C, VC, and JWT formats. So lots of good work happening there. Let's see, those are the end of our Hyperledger groups that we track. So onto the TOIP, and I'll try to move somewhat quickly through this so we make sure to have plenty of time for Clacio's presentation. As far as I could tell, there haven't been recent meetings of the all members meeting, steering committee, or communications committee, but feel free to jump in if I am missing information there. Let's see. In the governance stack working group, they've been giving input on a 3rd generation TOIP stack diagram. Looks like there are some other groups working on that as well. The Technology Architecture Task Force under the Technology Stack Working Group is also collaborating on that, as well as the TOIP Glossary Workspace, which is nearing completion. Let's see. The Trust Registry Task Force has been focusing on EU comparison, so comparing with the EUDIARF, which is the European Union Digital Identity Architecture and Reference Framework, and then TRAIN, which is Trust Management Infrastructure. So comparisons with what's going on over in Europe. See, the Trust Spanning Protocol Task Force as well has been having recent meetings and workshops. which sounds like have been helpful towards making key decisions, and they have another workshop planned today. No ACDC
I'm
updates
speaking
yet.
at that one, by the way.
Oh, great. Today.
Today, yeah.
Nice. What's the main topic for today?
So I'm going to propose a hybrid between the encryption and signing stuff that Sam Smith has been working on and proposing, and the relevant pieces of the DIDCOM 2.1 spec that allows us to gain both the advanced crypto that is desired, but also leverage the existing work, but also in a way that allows for independent layers of the stack to be augmented or replaced later as we get smarter moving forward. So there's been lots of discussions and sort of various proposals all over the spectrum, and this is my attempt to propose what I think is the cleanest way forward, gaining the benefits that we want without taking any unnecessary time or having to reinvent the universe.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. I look forward to hearing about that workshop. Looks like in the AI and Metaverse Technology Task Force, Daniel Bockenheimer has been talking about biometrics. Let's see. The Utility Foundry Group, they're on hiatus, still working with the Governance Architecture Task Force. And let's see. I don't believe the Ecosystem Foundry Group has met more recently than us. And the Concepts and Terminology working group has been working on their terminology engine version 2, as well as that technology stack working group glossary workspace. We talked about, I kind of breezed through these 2IP updates. Does anybody have any more specifics or details to add from any of these working groups? Sandy, it looks like you came off mute. Did you want to add anything? All right, so moving on to the Decentralized Identity Foundation, we've got the DIDCOM spec working group, who I guess it was the first Monday of the month, this past Monday. Let's see, Sam, do you want to give any updates on the goings on there?
Yep, we talked a little bit about the possible work with the trust spanning protocol. And that we also are finalizing and actually, like next hour, in 30 minutes, I'll be seeking approval from the DIF steering committee on turning that .1 release into a DIF ratified specification. I don't anticipate any issues there. The changes made make it easier for ION to use DIDCOM. There was a accident of the timeline, and that ION was finalized just prior to the spec, and then DIDCOM ended up going a different direction for its and chose the one thing that ION doesn't support for its endpoint definitions. And so a mild expansion of the spec allows for ION to use it easier. The DIDCOM was spec compliant before and after, but expanding it a little bit makes it easier for that community. And so that's what the .1 release is.
Wonderful. Thanks for that update.
Hey, Shar, I think I've been having audio issues the whole day long. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Thanks. So I was just going to add something on for the AI and Metaverse Task Force from TUIP. We meet bi-weekly over there, and we're working on, yes, there were some conversations about biometrics from Dan and then also from Wenjing. We're specifically looking into something called authenticated content from, say, Adobe and other folks like iProve, and the focus over there has been that how do you really prove any given content, like when you see some videos, something that's authentic and it's not being fabricated, given the advance in AI technologies, and that's pretty feasible these days. So that's one thing, and there's also a couple of white papers going on. In fact, one of the white papers I'm working on is that identity in game payments in gaming, and because I also have an approved mentorship project under Hyperledger, SIG, which is, by the way, getting a little reorganized too. And that white paper is actually in the topic of identity and payments, like essentially creating a mini game and then researching identity and payments in gaming and how we can extend that. So like essentially, obviously, focus being decentralized identity and payments.
Wonderful. Thanks for those updates. Looking forward to hearing more about the white papers. And great, thank you.
Absolutely. So on the white paper, just to add 1 30-second thing on that is that as we're working on this mentorship project under the Hyperledger projects, so I'm going to be doing some joint work with Hyperledger and also under TYP to present the research contents and what comes out of that.
Wonderful. That's great that you're using the mentorship program for that.
Yep. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for those updates. All right. Let's see. In the interoperability group, they've been having speakers join to talk about use cases, hearing about pain points that they're addressing and why their technical decisions addressed specific pain points, and seeking to recognize patterns and information in interoperability decision making. And they had a recent, I guess yesterday, they met and had a presentation on user adoption and interoperability from Dan Guresco. And let's see, in the IoT special interest group, they've also been focusing specifically on use cases and sharing of interests and experiences for the direction of work in that group. Are there any other decentralized identity foundation updates that anybody would like to jump in with? All right, in the W3C, as far as I could tell, there haven't been more recent meetings of the DID working group, but let me know if I'm wrong. And in the community credentials group, they've been having their education task force call and traceability call last week. And it looks like next week they have a presentation on digital trust infrastructure for discovery and validation. So are there any other working group updates that anybody would like to give before we turn it over to Clesio for his presentation?
Yeah, sure, if I may. On the CCG thing, there was actually a bunch of presentations from put on from folks working in implementing DI using SSI concepts in put on. And so I'm not going to go into details, but I think you could probably share some of those things here, like have some links come over here, because they're actually going live with on the official government level. So that's happening soon. They're also trying to basically have the airlines work with the neighboring countries like India and other places to actually use the SSI for the actual IDing purposes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up. It looks like the Ecosystem Foundry Group in the TYP recently had a meeting related to that. But if you have any links related to the discussions in the CCG group that you could send my way, that would be wonderful. I can also look as well. So thank you for jumping in with that.
Sure.
All right. Let's see. I want to make sure we have enough time for Clesio, so I will turn it over to you and give the screen share up.
Okay. Can you hear me well? My
yes.
microphone. Okay. Let me share my screen. Okay, looks like my team,
You should be good now if you want to try again.
Okay, I think I will need to restart my Zoom. Okay, just give me 1 second.
No worries. Does anybody have any thoughts from IAW that they'd want to share? Anybody in this group attend? Clasio is back. Let's see. I was able to go to IW 2 weeks ago. It was my first time, so it's really fun to go and connect with people in the community. There were lots of talks about AI and governance, lots of folks from the government as well joining, and excited to collaborate. I gave a session on the Hyperledger Indie roadmap, so that was fun to spread the word about the work happening there. And also talked about the launch of this group, the merge. So cool. That looks great, Clasio. I can't hear you though, if you are talking. Let's see. Are others able to hear Clasio?
I was mute. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Can you hear me now and see me now?
Yes, yes. Everything looks great.
All good.
All right. Can you just tell me that you can see a browser in the middle and have a phone on the right-hand side?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sharing the right screen. That's good. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Clasio Vargel. I work for the government of British Columbia in Canada. So we have been working on an app called BC Wallet. But we have also been working on Aries Bifold, which is the upstream project for our app. Both of them are open source. Of course, Hyperledger Bifold is open source, but also BC Wallet itself, we're also building, making that open source. I'd like to acknowledge and thank the community. Some of you are in this call as well. Some companies like Indicio, Char, Animal, and DSR. There's a number of companies, organizations around the world who have contributed in one way or another to either Bifold, AFJ, and a number of other projects that really enable this app to work. One of the things that I would like to highlight, I think in Shar you mentioned in the Akapai call, there was conversations about moving to Askar. We were struggling with the mediator particularly, and how it was not scaling properly, it was not performing in a satisfactory way. So we have spent a lot of time investigating and doing some load testing, performance testing, and that's where we came to a conclusion that moving to Askar would be our best direction, other than come up with a new mediator service. So we do have a demo. At the end, I'm gonna post a link that you can see. I'm gonna run from a dev environment, just because there is one feature that I want to highlight, but I'll paste in chat the link if you want to follow along now or later. You're welcome to do so. This is a live demo, so hopefully things will work. Fingers crossed. Okay, so in BC we do have this showcase where we provide a number of use cases that are represented by those two personas. One, we have a student and a lawyer. The lawyer showcase is the one that we have been actually working. It's in production in a limited release. We started pretty small with about 20 lawyers participating in the pilot program, and we are now have reached over 200 lawyers who are participating now. And we expected that within the next 2 or 3 months to extend to the reminders of the lawyers, which is a total amount of about 14,000 lawyers would potentially be using the system. Also, shout out to this demo. This demo is another working contribution from the open source community. We borrowed this from Animal, so thank you very much. So if you go through this showcase, there's a bunch of screens explaining a little bit. I'm not gonna go in details, but if you have the time, you can read and try it out yourself. It goes through the steps of installing BC Wallet, a little bit of background on why Law Society of BC is going digital, some explanation, why it's important for court materials to go online. We talk about Law Society of BC is the organization that regulates the lawyer profession in BC. So they're the issuers and they have the authority to say who is a active, good standing lawyer who are authorized to practice law in BC. I'm going to start by getting a lawyer credential. I have my wallet ready here. The same process, I always scan a QR code. I will receive a credential offer with my lawyer membership card. In the real production, as it is right now, lawyers currently have access to a Law Society of BC member portal where they are able to enter their login, their username and password that they already have, and they're able to manage their own credentials. So they're able to issue a credential, revoke a credential, or reissue a credential. It's important to highlight as well that the issuer, Law Society of BC, have implemented a business rule that there can only be one active, non-revoked credential at the time. So they do apply a business rule where whenever a new credential is issued, any active credential, at least the previous one, is automatically revoked. So the next step is for going through this showcase is to get that what we're calling to a person credential. The person credential, it's based on our BC Services Card program. So that information, we already have them. We integrate with that BC Services Card holder app. In a production environment, they use their BC Service Card app, and we leverage the identity proving that has already been done. It has been going around for quite a few years. We have recently reached a milestone where that BC Service Card app has been installed. Over 2 million users, 2 million devices are currently using BC Service Card app. And I'm going to explain a little bit why we needed the both credentials. So we have here in my wallet the Law Society of BC member card, which tells someone that yes, I'm an active, good standing lawyer authorized to practice law in BC. If at any time this change, a credential can be revoked by the Law Society of BC, and the user will be informed of that right away, and verifiers would then have an option to request for proof of non-revocation, and that's where they would potentially lose access to some systems. I'll go through the use case of going through the court services branch. Court services branch is providing a access to court materials online. Currently, that service is only provided in person. So the biggest difference for lawyers is that they no longer have to drive to the courthouse and go in person to access those materials. They can do it now from their own office, from their own computer, anywhere they have access to the internet. This is the proof request that is going to be issued by the wallet. So once that proof request is satisfied, they then have access to the system. You can see here on the proof request is showing two credentials. One, the Law Society of BC, the other one is the person credential. You're going to notice that this proof request does not ask for all information, but only what is the minimum information that is needed to access the system. One of the things that from BC, we have very strong privacy laws in regards to tracking and identifiers. You notice that we have made a decision and decided to not provide any unique identifier in the person credential. The law member credential, they do have a ID, but from government right now, we're not offering a unique identifier, which might change over time, but this is where we are right now. Right now, there wasn't identified a need for the services that we were enabling. I receive approved requests. I can then accept and share that information, and the information is accepted on that side on the system. Some validation process. There is some other business rules here. For instance, they check that the first name and the family names they match. There has been a few situations where where lawyers haven't updated the records and their name, there's a mismatch, either because they got married or they got divorced. Their names hasn't been officially updated yet. And there's also situations where lawyers prefer, we've noticed as well that particularly potentially females, they prefer to go by their maiden name when they're practicing law. And that's a quick demo of our showcase using the lawyer credential and the person credential. I'm gonna pause here for a brief second if there's any question. And I'd like to do a demo of another feature, the mobile verifier, that has been one that has recently been put in production. I'll keep an eye for hands up. Shar, can you let me know?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a quick question
Okay.
too. So in order to access the court records, you need to use the person credential in addition to the lawyer credential. Is that to match the names, or why are both needed?
Correct. That's an interesting question. So the both credential, it mimics the currently kind of a manual in-person process where in order to keep or the level of identity assurance, they're requested to provide 2 pieces of ID.
I
So
see.
that'll be the 2 pieces of ID. So one that is managed by the Law Society of BC, the other one managed by the government by a different party. So from a security and privacy perspective, the likelihood of 2 identities from different issues being compromised at the same time is relatively low, but also allow them to rely on the identity proving process on BC Service Card app and the government issue credentials are much higher than the ones from Law Society of BC.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, no problem. So another thing that I'm gonna demo is our mobile verifier functionality that is recently has been, we work with the community and it has been it's in Bifold. So all of these features, the features that I am talking about, it's in Bifold. So if you're planning on producing your own wallet, all those features are readily available. I'm going to show you a trick. So if you are going through the showcase yourself later on, there is an option to enable dev mode where you have access to potentially some tech preview features. If you type the version of the app about 10 times, you are unlocked. You can unlock developer options. And then develop options are going to enable the functionality of user verifier capability. There are 2 capability. Is the verifier capability. This is enable connectionless proof request, and the use connection inviter capability will enable you to generate a QR code to connect, and you can then provide that connection proof request as well. So I will do that, but I need to do on the verifier phone, which is on this other one. So I will redo this really quick. Okay, so once that feature has been unlocked, now you're going to see those 2 options. One is proof request and a proof request. The other one is connection to invite. The reason being that those features are gated for now. We're not entirely sure how to present that in a user-friendly way. Our user researcher and user experience has been doing some research and doing some analysis and prototyping about how the users would better understand this feature. From this one, I'm going to send a proof request. As proof request right now, we have decided to sort of embed baked in a number of proof request templates within BC Wallet. Right now in Bifold, there's no template, so it's up to each wallet distributor to define their own. For BC Wallet, we've decided to create a proof request template around the credentials that we currently have, which is the lawyer credential and the person credential. So I'm going to do perhaps a zero knowledge proof that asks if someone is over 18. There's a little bit of typo here. It says over 19, but it's actually requests over 18. So it generates a proof request. It generates a QR code, and with my other phone, I will then scan this QR code. Oh, and I use a credential that I don't have. Okay, gonna have to get that from another wallet. Okay, I will decline, and I'll go through this showcase and get another set of credentials. We currently have been working on these features kind of very actively. So one of the things that we're working on is the credential branding, OCA branding. And one of the things that we are working on is we have a number of showcase and demo credentials. We're experimenting with how to make those credentials, how to highlight that they're not for production. So that's something that is ongoing. We would generate a new QR code on the left side. Okay, there you go. So now I created a proof request. I can then share that information back to the mobile verifier on the left-hand side. It takes a little bit, but that information then has been received. It gives that green banner if has been, again, all the cryptographic signature and the requirement has been validated. Therefore, it gives that green banner. It should always get. We're working with the concept of maybe this is you're working a kiosk and you're trying to validate a number of people one after the other. There's always an option to generate a next one, and maybe the next person in line can then scan a QR code, share the credential, and so on. And you always have an option to keep going, generate a QR code, validate, next, and so on. Okay, so now I will go back. The other way that you can do that mobile verify is I can create a connection, and then I'm going to be connecting first with the device. And then from here, we do have the messaging available. So let me go back here. So I see the message. I can type a message one side, it's going to show on the other side, and so on. So from the mobile verifier, if I already have a connection, I can also send a proof request from here. And this one will not create a QR code, it's just send a proof request. I'll do the same proof request here, send this proof request. Just gonna go back a little bit. I received the proof request. I'll share that information. Now the verifier will now have that information. They have now the option to open and see the information that has been shared. And I'll stop here. We are almost over time, and I'll give a couple minutes for questions.
That was great demos, Clasio. Really interesting to see the flow of using your credential to access court records and the zero knowledge proof and messaging to a very nice interface and user experience.
Yeah, a user experience is something that we're very committed and we have been working quite significantly. Is if we want to release that to the general public, it has to be very easy and simple for the average person to understand and go through the flow.
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting to the end of the hour, but does anybody have any questions in the last few minutes?
Oh, I was just going to add to your point, Charles. I think this is very good to see. Thank you very much. One quick question. Do you have any sandbox that you can let other people come and play in?
Yes. So I'll paste the link in the chat. That is publicly available. Anybody can go and play with those flows. As well as BC Wallet itself, it's publicly available. It's available on the app stores. Anybody can download them.
Great, thanks. And I think the only thing I want to add in there is I think, like, especially when you're talking about you showing the zero, I'm sorry, the
Zero knowledge proof.
Yeah, thank you for helping me with that. So the ZKPs, I mean, essentially, I think one thing I struggle with on there is that, like, I mean, just showing somebody's name in a lot of situations may not be enough, like, because yes, I mean, if you just go into a movie or something, or you can just flash a name and maybe a picture, that's enough. But I think with the combination of fake IDs or with the fake, pictures and all that coming in, I think the question becomes how much additional proof you need, to really show that it's like actually you. You're not really showing somebody else's face, not really showing somebody else's name, and things like, oh, I'm over 18, or I'm basically admitted to this place here because, well, here's a binary decision on that.
So from our use case perspective, we again, lawyers, they follow the rules to the T, because otherwise they are subjected to getting their privilege to practice law revoked, right? So there's a number of things here. There is the trust registry part, or the governance side, about the verifier needs to know what credential from what issuer they trust. So it's not just a matter of asking for an individual name or age. It's a matter of validating that information as well, or maybe ask the question about, do you have the name from the member card issued by Law Society of BC? And the same thing for the person credential. I want that name from a person credential issued by the government of BC, as opposed to anybody who can create a person scheme or anything like that. So it's a little bit of the governance around that the verifier can codify that validation on their side. As I said, we do leverage the service BC identity proving process. So that means either you have gone through the process of identify yourself that you are who you are in order to get that person credential. As I said, that's what raises the level of identity assurance. And if the person has given the authority to somebody else to use their credential, that's they're already kind of it's almost like fraud. So again, they are subjected to the existing laws in place.
Right. Now, I think I'll probably get my some questions in because I'm sorry, I also have a hot stop, but I do have some follow-up questions. I'll probably circle back. And I think maybe one request to Shah. So Shah, I'm assuming you're going to capture these links here and place them on our wiki?
Yep, I will do that right after the call.
Thank you so much. Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Any other questions?
I'll Sorry, can you please put my information, contact information on the agenda on the wiki?
Yes, I will
If
do that.
somebody want to reach out, maybe they can reach out to my email.
Yeah, absolutely. I will make sure that that is on there. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Clesio, for a great demo and presentation. Super interesting to hear about. And thank you all for joining the call and for jumping in with working group status updates. And yeah, we'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Shah. Thank you very much.